boxing, please give me the thumbs up. I very much appreciate it. Put a lot of time and effort into these videos, and boxing in general, the sport that is wonderful and awful at the same damn time. This week we got a good show for you. We got a few different things to touch on this week. So we're going to recap about Dmitry Bivol and his highly impressive win. And then we're going to be talking about one of the greatest prospects in the sport of boxing, Janibek, as he is back taking on Denzel Bentley in a mismatch fight. But nonetheless, talking about some absolutely fantastic fighters this week on this show. Let's jump right in. So, for those of you who did not know, this past Saturday, we saw Dmitry Bivol take on an undefeated Zurdo Ramirez, who was 44-0 at the time. Sure, he hadn't fought anyone the likes of Dmitry Bivol, but nonetheless, getting to 44-0 in boxing, even not fighting the stiffest competition, is hard. Usually people can gather up 20 wins or so, and then you have to step up the competition slightly each time. Even in this game we hate, where great fighters are fighting people that we know they'll beat, that will only last so long because there has to be at least incremental little step ups. Sometimes you get a step back. You just got to keep moving it towards in the right direction here. So I do want to be clear. Zurdo Ramirez is no punk. He's a very hard-hitting Mexican, fighter that walks you down, has that Mexican style, likes to hit hard, likes to exchange, wants to brawl with people. Out of his 44 wins, he has a crazy amount of knockouts as well. I forget how many knockouts, 30-something of those wins. So he's an almost all KO kind of guy. And yeah, definitely a good win here. We might have Dmitry Bivol up for Fighter of the Year, and I want to give it more consideration before I pretend to say something that I myself, need to look into more and might be forgetting about some people. But he is certainly up there in the top of the competition, as he has beaten Canelo Alvarez and almost shut him out in a fantastic boxing effort. It already has a scalp of Joe Smith Jr., before when Joe Smith Jr. was very good and people didn't want to fight him and so on and so forth. And then now we saw what he did to Zurdo Ramirez. Absolutely, he shut him out. Basically, Zurdo Ramirez might have won the third round, and that would be just in a close enough round where not a lot of, action happened. So basically, this was Bivol again pitching a shutout against another high-class fighter. If you look at Dmitry Bivol's CompuBox stats in boxing, a lot of people don't know this, but he just handedly has some of the best stats that CompuBox lists out of any active fighter fighting today. He has some of the best stats as far as his defense goes. He doesn't get hit a lot. As far as his shot selection goes and his punches thrown, he doesn't miss a lot. And there's a lot of guys that do that very well, but their stats, they pale in comparison to Dmitry Bivol's CompuBox stats. Now, that being said, those numbers on those stats of punches landed on Bivol, punches thrown versus what actually had contact out of those punches for Dmitry Bivol, a lot of these things are based on defense, right? So not getting hit a lot. So you can fight a fight looking careful and boxing very well and sticking a precise jab from the outside, and you cannot get hit a lot, especially when you're as good as Dmitry Bivol is. So a lot of the times, Mayweather had great CompuBox stats, right? A lot of times, that's based on defense, that you're not getting hit a lot. So those numbers look impressive, but then you watch a guy's fights and you go, well, it is impressive. You have to say it's impressive, but maybe you don't like the fight style, whatnot. Those two things go hand in hand. Having great defensive stats in CompuBox and sometimes having more careful kind of fights. This fight with Zurdo Ramirez, he had some of the best stats that he has ever had. We'll go over and touch on this a little bit here in a second, but some of the best copy box stats that he has ever had in a fight were right here in this fight, where he shut out an undefeated fighter. But he did it not defensively, not being safe, not looking safe. He did this with fantastic boxing that also looked exciting. He went in there against a much heavier hitter in Zurdo Ramirez, and he stood right there with Zurdo. The only thing he liked to do is angle out. Of course, if he was going to be put on the ropes, the very few times that was close to happening, he would angle off of the ropes as well. But for the most part, Dmitry Bivol got in there with a bigger man and a harder puncher and just sat right there with him and took away everything that he could do in there. And he landed. Dmitry Bivol landed the harder shots. Dmitry Bivol stood in a pocket and landed amazing counters. Dmitry Bivol let his hands go throughout this entire fight and put on brilliant combinations on Zurdo. So the stats of copy box for this fight, you guys will not even believe this, but you know, out of all the punches that Dmitry Bivol threw, or I'm sorry, that Zurdo Ramirez threw, Bivol made him miss 88% of his punches thrown. Do you understand this number? 88%, right? Very close. Let's call it 90. It wasn't. It was 88. It was very close to 90. That would mean that every 10 punches that Zurdo Ramirez threw, he could only land one. And this was, as we just stated, against a guy in Dmitry Bivol that fought him toe-to-toe and did not run around the ring whatsoever. Coming out of that first round and Zurdo Ramirez is fresh, there was a precedent set. Dmitry Bivol won that round. He didn't win it running. He fought this way from round one all the way through, and at the end of round one, just kind of sat there. And Dmitry Bivol's a highly respectful fighter, a humble fighter, never trash talks. Didn't trash talk here, but he stood there after the bell went off, and Zurdo's kind of staring at him. After Bivol had won that round, hit Zurdo clean several times right off the bat, and he stood there with the bigger man and just kind of eyed him down, and whilst walking by kind of shoulder bumped even a little bit of a just kind of letting him know, you're not going to do what you thought you were going to do in here. You are not just, because you're still young enough, you're undefeated, 44-0, you're a Mexican come-forward style brawler who hits very hard, and just let him know, I don't need to run around the ring from you. I am so many miles ahead of you, right, that it's ridiculous. Now, I made a little bit of money off this fight, not much because Bivol was a favorite, but in my eyes, Dmitry Bivol should have been a regular kind of boxing favorite where you get a minus 1,600 or so, minus 1,300. He was only a minus 400 favorite, which, you know, we thought beforehand that's not even right. It should be more than that. And it turned out to be even exceeding, yet again, the expectations that I had for Dmitry Bivol. He might be the best fighter in boxing today. Pretty crazy to say that, but let's give it a little time. And I do think that that Bivol might be the fighter of the year with the win over Canelo, and now this stunning performance on Zurdo Ramirez, who had never tasted defeat before this. Highly impressive from him. Highly impressive. And what are we here for now? We're going to talk about the return of Janibek. Okay, we're going to have some fun here. There is no disrespect in this, but I'm just being honest, you guys. I've known about this guy for a while and not really. His name is Janibek. I'm going to attempt this last name here. Alec Moonley. Alacanuli. I don't know. This is crazy. But He is taking on Denzel Bentley. And but listen, this is a mismatch. This isn't me telling you to get excited about the fight. It's a heavy mismatch. The reason it's a mismatch is because Bentley's a guy who is already like Bentley hasn't fought A-class fighters at all, but then usually you have to be undefeated. He hasn't fought A-class fighters, and Bentley also has lost already to lesser than A-class fighters. On just to be completely honest, he had a loss against Cash that looked bad for him. And now they're putting him in there with a gigantic prospect and a guy who looks absolutely fantastic, hits incredibly hard. Janibek is basically like a kind of old school how Triple G was, where he hits very hard, but then this guy kind of has the feet, right, of someone, a lot more graceful, as well. He's a full package deal. There's not so watching this fight will be about the progress of just being able to see an artist at work like Janibek is. He is going to be one of these next big guys in the sport of boxing. That's for sure, and we know that. As I said, he hits very hard. He has very good footwork. So he can do simple things like manage his distance incredibly well into a T and know exactly where he is with his feet. But then he hits hard as well. But then also he'll counter you. But then also he's got, his glove and trunk movement and using his gloves to parry down shots and come over the top if he needs. He can fight on the inside. He can fight on the outside. He's going to hit harder than guys. He is in better physical shape than most guys. He is an absolute, monster. He's a monster. And I can't wait to see how he looks on this card. I'm sure that it will be an absolutely stunning knockout. And we'll be looking at the over-under for this, because he is going to be a gigantic favorite, as he should be. And the over-under might be ridiculous, if it's not like, over-under of 3 rounds or something. Like if they give it 6, under. I'm going under. I like going under, but I need to look at the over-under here, and I have not gotten a chance to yet. But Janibek will win this fight by incredible knockout in the most shocking fashion imaginable, I would presume, given how great he is and this level of competition that they're giving him to fight. And then we have something really exciting that is also on this card as the co-main event, is the first fight with ESPN under ESPN Top Rank for Sinisa Superbad Estrada, who we did a special of Unknown to Casuals on already, talking about Sinisa Estrada and how fantastic she is, how much of a fun fighter she is to watch. And she will be taking on a girl that, again, I'm not so familiar with. And I'll explain myself here in a bit anyways, doing the Unknown to Casuals. She is taking on Villarino. And, there's not really much to be said there. Now, here's the reason why even I have not really heard of this other girl. And there's a lot of... not maybe going to be a lot of great competition right off of the bat. For Sinisa Estrada is because ESPN Top Rank, their thing is to recruit out of the Olympics. Their thing is to, just recruit young guys and create a roster of fresh faces that they can bring up through professional boxing. Other promotions, they just want to acquire all of the more known fighters and put on expensive pay-per-views like the PBC and Showtime and Al Heyman and Mayweather. That's kind of what those guys are about. So they have a lot of prime talent, but a lot of them are a little bit older, even if they're still in their prime. ESPN works from the bottom up with Top Rank and Bob Arum, where they're trying to, get their own roster going of these guys that will eventually support themselves because they have the premier talent as far as up-and-comers go in boxing and prospects. ESPN Top Rank has them. One thing ESPN Top Rank and Bob Arum have never done uh, which this is an interesting move though for them, is they've never really cared about promoting women boxing events really, and the only person not so long ago that they acquired was Michaela Mayer, and Michaela Mayer, you know, they didn't, they tried to do a good job of promoting her, but it's almost like you could see that was their test dummy to do it, and it's tough because although Michaela Mayer is very good, you know, I mean, once she just lost to Alicia Baumgardner, but that was a close. Michaela Mayer is a very good fighter, but when you're dealing with a small pool of people that will be interested here and now, or that you can, you know, get interested in watching female boxing events, that's a small pool. And then you go into that pool and you see who do people know. They'd be lucky to know, you know, Clarissa Shields and Katie Taylor and you know, maybe now Amanda Serrano, right? But a lot of people don't know who Alicia Baumgardner is, or Michaela Mayer is, or who Terry Harper is, or who Sinisa Estrada is. And Sinisa Estrada is one of my favorite fighters. So I was glad to see this move because even though there's not a lot of talent right there now for her to fight, uh, ESPN, if they can make a bit of a start of her, they'll bring some people over for a fight or two to juice up a promoting of Sinisa Estrada is the hopeful thing that will happen here. And you know, there's just her leaving also is still a good thing because she's leaving Golden Boy Promotions, which is a sinking ship. It really is. You know, everyone who's worth anything on Golden Boy is left. So then, you know, they had you know, Canelo long time ago, right? Then he left, and then they have you know, Ryan Garcia still, but he's gonna leave as well. Just mark my words, like Ryan Garcia will leave Golden Boy, you know, in the next so many fights, 2 fights, 1 fight. He's gonna leave Golden Boy soon as well, just like Canelo did. You know, they had Sinisa Estrada was cool. Now look at now she's gone, right? Jump ship. A lot of people just can't function there because De La Hoya doesn't know how to promote in boxing. You know, he just doesn't. He was a great fighter. He is not built for this business. He's on there just making an ass of himself and being coked out on almost every interview that he does. And he's losing the few people that he had in his pool to promote in the first place. Until there's nobody left but like the Puerto Rican Rocky Gabriel Rosado, God bless him. You know, but a lot of these guys are leaving him because he can't do anything for their careers, no matter what he says. He doesn't have the sway with these other promotional bodies the way that, you know, Bob Arum and Al Heyman will sometimes talk and see, and that's rare. But to see if a fight can be worked out, nobody needs to work with Golden Boy. Then he won't even allow it to happen because when they say 70-30, he goes 50-50. But he's not. His promotional company is not worth anything compared to these other people. And that's why he's losing fighters, and then the more fighters that he loses, the less fights that he can even put on within his small capsule of boxers that he's promoting. So it's a good thing that she's leaving that, and I wish her the best, but I will be excited to see her here, and I hope that Top Rank gets behind her. Maybe this is the start of a movement where, you know, they'll have her and some other girls that that they can start putting something into that as well, into acquiring talent in women's boxing. But until next time, loyal fight fans, this been a good show. I feel like I apologize for being a couple of days late. Usually I'm not. I'm really pretty steady about this, but there's some things going on in my life. Enough said. Needed an extra day, but here we are now, and I'm glad to be back. Place your bets on janibek, you know, knocking the hell out of this guy, and we might give you a fight picks from the future for this UFC card, which, you know, will be good, but hopefully, but we are also pretty confident about having some picks on there.